The Brewhouse was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery. But the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewhouse.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Thanks for joining us. I'm Bill Pucko. Pleasure to be rejoined by Kevin Oklobzija from the Rochester Business Journal.
Pleasure to be here.
Longtime beat writer for the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, one of the best and hardest working sports writers this city has ever seen.
Wow.
Is there someone behind Kevin talking about?
In lieu of payment, we'll just lather
Mike Catalana co-hosting
Thanks.
along with Pat Duffy. The uniform?
Well, Bills Chargers on Sunday in honor of this game, our old buddy, now third-string quarterback for the Los Angeles Chargers, Cardale Jones.
Boy, in a few years, that'll be the most forgotten name, huh?
In a few years, maybe
Cardale.
this will fit if I keep eating salad.
Hey, speaking of the Buffalo Bills,
So you're not going to wear it anymore?
changing of the guard and the quarterback situation. What do we make of the Bills, which I think is a surprising move, is going to Nathan Peterman as their quarterback?
Well, I think it's very surprising. And I don't even know, let's find out what he can do, because we know Tyrod can't do it. He's not capable of playing in the pocket, and if you keep him in the pocket, we see what happened.
But the narrative over the last 2 weeks, it says, Tyrod was the first half MVP, and everyone's talking about, you could certainly do worse, and there's a lot of talk about we should bring him back, da-da-da, and now it's, it happens fast.
I'm all in favor of a change.
I used to say all the time, there's the J.P. Lossman scale of quarterbacks in Buffalo, where it's like J.P. was J.P., and you're like, oh, he's slightly better. Trent Edwards for a little while. I believe Tyrod is now that bar, right? Because I think he's been the most effective quarterback they've had since Doug Flutie. He's been consistent and effective. Yeah,
That doesn't mean he's good, but I like that analogy. You are correct. He's
Fitz-
been the most effective
That's
since.
what I'm saying. Fitz had his moments, but consistent and effective, I think that's Tyrod. And he's won football games. But you got to be better in the NFL. Now, we don't know if Nate Peterman is going to be better, but they want to find out. I'm a little surprised it was this week. It's funny. My first thought, and I said it Sunday night after the game, I go, yeah, he said Tyrod's the starter, but you never know. He could come back on Wednesday and make a change. But I didn't think that was going to happen until Wednesday. Bang, he makes this decision. Interesting timing. I thought it was going to be 3 weeks later. I thought he was going to play the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Patriots. They would be out of it or close to out of it if that was the case, and then he would go with Peterman. But he didn't, and I have to say, well, we're going to find out a little bit, this weekend and Sunday when he plays against the Chargers, but I'm not totally surprised because I said, you guys know, earlier in the year, I thought Peterman would take meaningful snaps. Well, they're coming a little bit earlier than we thought.
You guys are going at it pretty good pregame.
I don't understand what the heck happened. I don't get it. You're 5-4. You're in the heart of a playoff race. In fact, you are in a playoff spot. You control your own destiny if you win this game on Sunday in Los Angeles. So instead of bringing out the quarterback who gives you the best option to win, and that's Tyrod. I don't care what anybody says about the future. At this moment, Tyrod gives you the best chance to win this game. Instead of that, you decide, everyone stay with me for a second, to start a fifth-round pick in a West Coast game, on an East Coast game, in an opposing stadium against the second-best overall defense in the league, third in sacks, a team that's going to pressure the heck out of him and then bait him into throwing interceptions. A guy who everyone talks about his accuracy and timing. He was a 54% completion percentage in the preseason against second and third team defenses. Where the heck is this coming from? I expect fans to call for Nathan Peterman. The backup quarterback is always the most popular guy in town. But I would think a guy like general manager Brandon Beane or head coach Sean McDermott would understand that this is a bad idea. And it reeks, I don't care what you say, Jinxie McJinx pants, it reeks of desperation.
The only thing I'm saying about all of those points you just made, does it matter that they're playing in Los Angeles?
Yes, it does matter.
The West Coast does, the stadium doesn't.
Yeah,
There's nobody there anyway.
Well, he's right, and I would say that.
But being on the West Coast, different time change, sure,
Yeah,
I get it.
that doesn't matter at all. Here's the thing. They have an adult in the room, and the adult's name is Sean McDermott. I said this to you before. He's not a prisoner of the 17-year drought. Mm-hmm. He's actually looking at it. I said when McDermott gets hired, first thought is, well, he's not going to bring Tyrod back.
But he did.
He brings Tyrod back. Then McDermott starts the year. He trades Sammy Watkins. Oh, they're tanking. They weren't tanking. Now it's Peterman. It's desperation, or he doesn't think it can help. Now, we don't know what it'll be. They want to see Nate Peterman. They look at the tape, and while we can say Tyrod gives them the best chance to win, well, he certainly didn't in the last game. The defense was atrocious. But Tyrod, you bring in Kelvin Benjamin, and Tyrod doesn't look his way after the first series. I think that frustrates the coaches.
You had a game with him! You had a game
Well, let me tell you
with
something.
Kelvin Benjamin!
All right, let me tell you something. I said, if you have Mike Tolbert in your PPR league, bench him this week because they're not going to do dump-offs 4 yards to Mike Tolbert.
You're right, because those balls are going the other way because Joey Bosa is going to be in Peterman's face when the safety baits him to throw a short pass to the receiver on the corner.
I think it goes back to the way that we thought about the Sammy Watkins trade and the Darby one that went with it, is that the long-term picture of this is McDermott didn't think that this was a playoff team, doesn't think it's a playoff team.
You're right.
And is constantly looking at the
look,
long picture.
I understand fans, Pat. 17 years is...
you patronize me,
You're wearing a jersey.
Yeah. But I dropped some pretty good knowledge.
No, I understand the drought. I get it. I said if 3 years ago, they would have snuck in the playoffs and gotten beat, nobody would be as obsessed with this drought thing as it is. Don't you want the guy to build the winner? I love the fact that he said we're 5-4.
What difference does another year make?
The same
Right.
thing last year, the year before. God.
But this is McDermott. I think everybody has faith in him. Do you not think he knows what he's doing?
See, here's the problem, and just real quick, I know we're super late. You cannot make the right move over and over again. And so far, he's made the right move, and he's bound to make the wrong move. And I have the feeling this is the wrong move, much like inviting Mike Catalana to do the show on a weekly basis.
Tyrod is not going to be back next year. I think this decision has been made. Right, he's not going to be back next season. I think that's.
But what an indoctrination against these three opponents. I mean, the Chargers because of that defense, and then you get Chiefs Patriots. I mean,
right.
For Peterman, that's like, okay.
Well, coming up next, there's more talking points with the Buffalo Bills. We'll look at that Charger game next when the Rochester Press Box continues. The Press Box, brought to you in part by Connors and Ferris, your workers' comp attorneys. Call 262-COMP, C-O-M-P, today. Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse, and this portion brought to you by Connors and Ferris. Talking points of the Buffalo Bills outside of Peterman. The Chargers, a 5-point favorite this week.
The Bills have been abysmal the last 2 weeks all around. So we talked a lot about what the quarterbacks have done. Different kind of ways to be abysmal, right? The Jets game, they're throwing the ball away. It was more about missed tackles. And then the game against the Saints was arguably as poor as a at least decent Bills team has ever played in a game. I mean, because it wasn't just a quarterback, Tom Brady, killing them. It was man on man. They got beat every time. Is it a little bit of a wake-up call for this week? Well, I would hope so. I thought they would have had a little bit of that from the Jets. So these moves that he's made, cutting Worthy on the defensive line and then obviously making the quarterback change, they don't fix everything. This team has been bad to this point. Chargers, as we're taping this, looks like Rivers may be okay to play. That makes a big difference in this game. I mean, it's Phillip Rivers against a guy, Kellen Clemens, who never plays at all. Well, I guess he's going against a rookie who's never played in a game. But Kellen Clemens hasn't played. So I think this is a tough spot for the Bills in many, many ways. And what are we saying, 5 points in this game? I'll take the Bills in the points, but I think they're going to end up losing a close game.
How much of this is Darius?
None of it. I don't think any of it's Darius. I mean, the only valid argument I heard about Marcel Darius from somebody was that he would take up double teams and he would force teams to alter their run plan. That being said, he was only playing 25 to 40% of the snaps. I just think that the tape is out on what McDermott wanted to do. I think that he had guys playing over his head, and they weren't facing adversity very well. I don't know how to explain what the heck happened against New Orleans. I think it's one of those days where you get kicked in the teeth, and there was no recovering. But that being said, I have no idea what to expect out of this Bills team in Los Angeles on Sunday.
Yeah, and it's interesting Pat says that because we talked about it. 7 weeks, you knew what to expect out of them. Right? They were really, really consistent. And then they were awful against the Jets and then basically laid down against the Saints.
Pick them.
5.5.
We'll go 5 even.
Okay, 5. I'm gonna say the Bills don't cover on Sunday just because how could you? And I want to make sure I increase my ground against Mike Catalana.
Kevin.
I got the Chargers by 9.
All right, I like the Chargers because I think deep down they're a good team. They just have not reached that level yet. Although the Rivers thing just makes it almost
makes
pointless
it up in
to
the
pick
air.
this thing. I like the Eagles getting 3 at Dallas. Who's your other game?
Mexico City, New England is playing Oakland. Oakland's getting 6.5 points, but with the exchange rate, that's only 3.5. I like Oakland. It's pretty much a home game for them in Mexico City. They love their Oakland Raiders down there. I think Oakland gets the upset with New England having to travel out of country. Oakland with the points.
Kevin?
Love the Eagles.
Oh, you guys are scaring me in that game. The Eagles are coming off a bye, and everything has been going their way. And obviously, I would like to see that happen, but I'm not going to take them. I'm going to go from the best team in the league, the Eagles, and I'm going to take the worst. I'm going to take the Cleveland Browns getting 7.5 points from the Doug Marones this week.
Connors and Ferris, the sponsor of this segment of the Rochester Press Box, will award the winner of our Pick the NFL contest a check of $500 to be donated to the Hunters Hope Foundation. Greg Connors this week picks Buffalo. This portion of the Rochester Press Box brought to you by Connors and Ferris. Like It or Not is next. Welcome back. This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Call this Like It or Not. Kevin, like it or not, the future of the Rochester Rhinos in this city.
Dismal. Attendance was down 1,600. That's announced this year. That's the biggest drop in that league. I don't know how you save it. Once they left Frontier Field, it just wasn't the same. The atmosphere is not the same. You can't rely on concessions at a soccer game as part of your revenue stream. There's no time to sell. You're not going to leave your seat to miss the one goal of the month. You're really not, and I'm serious. So when do you make that money? Teams survive on concession revenue, but you can't in soccer, not at this level, not here. And the stadium, I mean, everybody, again, it's 4 blocks from Frontier Field. It's same area, but it's not. And that's a perception that people cannot get over and don't get over.
And my whole time here, Mike, it's like the biggest puzzle for me has been how this all went.
Yeah.
You know, we were candidates for MLS once, whether it was serious or not.
Yep.
This was the place to be. The place was rocking.
Didn't
then they
coin a
built their own
Soccer Town
stadium.
USA or
and
something,
it was
or?
like all this momentum, and it just stopped.
It stopped. You got what you wished for, right? You got a soccer-specific stadium, and it did lose that. You lost. We always talk about this in other sports. You lost the casual fan. You lost the other people. It is
they don't play 4-3 games anymore.
No.
So there was some entertainment value.
And
because
everybody,
people like that.
and you knew the Doug Millers and Lennon Steenkamps, fans knew them, and the Amerks were really down for that period of time too. So they became even more known in the community. They were bigger than the Red Wings, bigger than the Amerks at that point. And I feel for David and Wendy Dworkin because I think they really jumped in both feet and like, we're going to make this work. And I think
We're doing it for Rochester.
they are, and
My
I think
question
they
is,
realized
why
how
did
big
they
it was.
think it would work? That's what I don't
the
get.
very first year that they moved out of Frontier Fields, the very first year,
Yeah.
that's supposed to be the glory year. You know, new stadium, big crowds, everything. And it was nothing. It told you the very first year they moved, there's going to be a problem here.
But that stadium, too, again, to Kevin's point, it's like at the end of Silver Stadium, because the message was it's not a good place, and the Red Wings had done that in order to get their new stadium. Once that perception, Irondequoit Mall, whatever it is, once that perception is out there, it is hard to break. But I do think there's some reality to it. I mean, there is. I go down there, for Section 5 games.
Sure.
They draw better at St. John Fisher or Brockport than they do down there. It's not working. And then add in the whole soccer thing, which you can argue all you want. It's not a product that brings in other people as much as some other sports.
It's funny you bring up Irondequoit Mall, right? I think the best option you have for that stadium is building a Macy's on top of it. That's going to draw the most people at this point. If you don't have a soccer team in there, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah.
Well, Macy's is almost bankrupt, too.
Okay, so let Macy's. Maybe Lauren Taylor will go a little higher end. I'm not sure, guys. I'm just spitballing here.
What do you think the scrap metal value is?
I mean,
it's
I mean,
really.
is that really what we're reduced to?
But
hey, is there anything
how could another soccer team come here and try and make it?
Is there anything? Is there anything out there that we're like,
No.
I'm not thinking about that could be used
it
for?
would be, you talk about using it for high school events and all those kind of things, but then there's point, you got to generate revenue. Those things don't generate revenue like a pro team could, unless you really took it over, really, like then put money into it, more parking, better lighting, all those things that go with it, and made it into this high school mecca, and I still don't think the location's
For 50 years, all we've heard about is all these kids that play soccer are going to grow up and be soccer fans.
Well, in other cities, it does work. It's got to be. Like Cincinnati happens to be that place right now.
Same league, 20,000 fans a game.
Right, going to games in Cincinnati.
And that's a big league town.
Right, they have teams.
other major league teams.
I think it's Pat's fault.
This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House. Unfinished Business is next.
Dunkin' has lots of fall favorites to root for. Maple pecan, pumpkin, maple sugar bacon. But on game day, we root for one team. One team, baby. Win the fall, folks.
Welcome back. This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House. Unfinished Business is presented by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin', and Pat always starts.
This one goes out to all you sports dads watching the show. Mike and I were just talking about it, right? Guys that would love to go to minor league sports games, but your kid's schedule's too crazy. So I pretty much live at the Bill Gray's Regional Iceplex now out there in Henrietta because my 7-year-old plays house hockey. Let me say that again. My 7-year-old plays house hockey, and I'm living at a hockey rink. We also have to travel. I played house hockey as a kid, right? The way, if you played hockey before, here's how it went. Let's say you went to Lakeshore, right? You played the 4 teams that were at Lakeshore. You played each other every, Saturday. You had practice once a week, and that was the end of it. It's the 3rd week of the season. We've been to 4 different rinks. It'll be 5 on Sunday when my daughter has her other game. It is almost impossible at any level now to have a social life outside of your child's sports. And I'm learning the hard way, being the diehard Bills fan that I am, what it's like to be an adult following sports, right? I had to listen to the Raiders game on my portable speaker while watching my daughter play hockey the other day. And I don't know what the heck I'm going to do, because one of my favorite things in the world is to watch my daughter play sports. One of my other favorite things in the world is to watch the Bills play football. Something is going to happen. So when people ask why numbers for the MLB and the NFL and the NHL are down, I don't think that it has anything to do with politics or social issues. I think it has to do with all of these kids like me that were growing up as sports nuts now have responsibilities, and we might be making the right decision.
Yeah, but representing the old guys on the staff, that hasn't changed in 20 years. I went through the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's gotten more, and I think at a younger age. But I want to ask, is your daughter better at hockey than you already?
Well, if we played one-on-one, I'd smoke her.
Really?
No.
Kevin.
So, the Buffalo Sabres, yeah, we're here again. It's the same thing. It's Groundhog Day. And it's a good thing Tim Murray got fired when he did, because now he'd get fired at this point. This is the talent he left the people who followed him, like Jason Botterill and Coach Phil Housley, in a league that for the last 3 or 4 years has been building speed. He left them a bunch of slow guys. Some guys who can't really play very well, can't keep up, and now the new regime is supposed to be able to rebuild quickly. It's a slow process. Look at the New Jersey Devils, though, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Let's forget the Maple Leafs, because everybody says, look at the Leafs. Yeah, they rebuilt really quickly. Look at the Devils. They were horrible for 2 years. They are pretty darn good right now because they're fast. Tim Murray, I don't know what he was building, but it was one of the slower teams, and they're paying the price now. And it's just, I don't, it's like the Bills. Is it going to end?
Right?
What is going to make it turn around?
This is fun.
Everyone else is able to turn around quickly.
All this negativity. All right. Nate Peterman's going to start for the Bills on Sunday, but I want to talk about Tyrod Taylor. I want to talk about Tyrod and what he is. Tyrod is a guy who is a worker. Tyrod is a good teammate. Tyrod is what most people thought he was. A hardworking guy, did what the coaches asked of him, did what the team did, really swallowed his pride a little bit when he came back because they treated him so poorly at the end of last year. And the day he found out that he was going to get benched, he didn't go to his agent, he didn't leak anything, he just stayed there, came out the next day, talked to the media, accepted it, said he was mad, said he was angry, said he didn't agree with it, but took it the right way and said the right thing, which is that he would support Nate Peterman. And I'm sure Nate Peterman has supported him. Tyrod is a good guy and a hard worker, and I wish him the best wherever he plays football next season. But I do think it's time to move on from him. 3 years of Tyrod has shown us what he is. In the pocket, out of the pocket, he is a good football player who can play in the NFL, but he should not be your long-term quarterback. We don't know if Nate Peterman is, but we know what Tyrod is. A good man, a good teammate, but a guy who needs to move on.
Classy guy.
Yep.
This portion of the Rochester Press Box brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Kevin, thanks for joining us again.
Hey, great
we'll
to
see
be
you
here.
again soon. Guys,
Thank you.
thank you for joining us. See you next week with the Rochester Press Box.